Sex, and Love. It's your girl, Miracle Sims, and tonight I'm going to be chatting with Dr. Graham Stevenson, another friend from the UK. So go ahead and grab your snacks, friends, and stay tuned. Welcome back to God, Sex, and Love. I am here with Dr. Graham Stevenson. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
I'm good. Okay. Well, welcome to God, Sex, and Love, all the way from the UK, right?
Yeah. Slightly overcast UK.
Oh, is it? I know it's been kind of rainy around here the past few days too. They said that there was a tornado that went through Atlanta. I want to say a couple of days ago. So I don't know about all that, but yeah. Well, welcome. So, Mr. or Dr. Excuse me, let's make sure we say it right? Dr. Graham Stevenson. I also met you through this sexpert community, right? So would you say that you are a sexpert as well?
Yes, an interesting word, but yes, I guess I am in some ways.
Okay.
What particular aspect did you want to know about?
Well, honestly, obviously you're a doctor in it and everything like that. So I would love to, hear more about, you and the things that you have going on.
Well, my work, I work as an intimacy coach, but I'm dealing with sex and relationships. And I have two modalities. I work talking online with couples, individuals, and I also work with touch in person, one-to-one or with couples.
Oh, okay.
Well, sex is not just a brain thing, it's a bit like riding a bike. You can read books about it, but unless somebody's there to hold the bike while you get on and learn to balance, you don't really learn to ride a bike.
Got you. So you're the one holding the bike for people there.
Metaphorically speaking, I hold the bike.
Love it. Well, I mean, obviously, one of the things I talked about in the past to another sexpert, if you will, is this idea of married couples feeling as if, or something changes when you get married sometimes, or it seems as if something changes where, the sex life dwindles, which, we're God, Sex, and Love and everything like that. So we're, a faith-based Christian show or whatever. And so from what I'm understanding is, when two become one in marriage, then that's the time for you to, explore more when it comes to this whole sex thing. So what would you say to, obviously you're helping a lot of couples in that type of situation, maybe married and they're probably are struggling with that.
Yeah. I suppose one of the things that is very hit and miss is the idea that you get married as a virgin and you have no sexual experience beforehand. You choose somebody whom you can enjoy this sexual experience with, but then find out that you're probably not suited, or you just get bored, or you get into a rut because who taught you about sex? Who prepared you for sex? Who prepared you, frankly, for relationships? I think our education system doesn't prepare us generally. In the UK, our sex ed was based on the bad news, the car crash, STIs, abortions, how to say no, sperm and eggs, not about how to have fun, not about how to have pleasure, which anybody who's just it's a bit like being given a sports car and being shown pictures of car crashes and things. Every adolescent has a body that's throbbing with hormones and a mind that's asking questions about sex, and you just get bad news. And the whole idea was to put so much fear into you that you wouldn't have sex, which is a really bad start to any sexual relationship.
That is an awesome point that you made. Like, I didn't even really think about that, but I would agree that, yeah, the first, introduction to sex for the most part, especially in school, was, all the, like you said, the negative parts and things like that. And so, I mean, it's one of those things, because I know that, it's important to talk about the reality of sex, and like, obviously sex is a way to procreate and things like that. So I think being honest about that is good. But then, like you say, presenting it in a way where everything is negative, then it kind of leaves us in a place where, well, where does the positive come in? At that same time, on the flip side, we hear all about, it depends on who's, like you said, who's taught you though, right? Where'd you get it from? Because some people may focus all on the good part and then don't tell you about some of the consequences as well. So, it's a very interesting point you made there. So how do we find balance then?
I think that the biggest issue that I come across is shame. Shame is a real passion killer. And shame and ignorance are the two things, basically. And I mean, I'm not ignorance necessarily about the Bible, but ignorance about people's bodies, their own bodies. So most of my colleagues in sex coaching and probably in sex therapy would use masturbation, self-pleasuring, as a first step in connecting with your sexuality. Now, if masturbation is off limits because of religious ideas, or off limits because of shame or other things, you've already got a problem. But from a natural point of view, masturbation is a way in which you discover how you get pleasure. And the problem with all the unwritten messages we get is that men are hardwired for sex, and they're supposed to be able to satisfy anybody and know all about it, but nobody teaches them anything. So they often brag about stuff, or they think women operate the same way as men. And women are supposed to be sacrificial and, sort of keep the peace and give up their bodies to having babies and please men and all that kind of thing. And they're not really allowed to have pleasure. So there's ignorance and shame. And for me, it's quite interesting that right in the middle of the Bible is this tiny little book called Song of Solomon, which is all about sex. But let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard anybody preach about sex from Song of Solomon?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think. Well, maybe like internet preachers, but probably not in person. I don't think I can recall.
All the preaching I got was turning Song of Solomon to how Christ loved the church, all spiritualized.
Oh.
This was all about up in the clouds. It's not earthly based. And human sexuality is an amazing God-given experience of heaven, Even unbelievers shout, "Oh my God," when they're having an orgasm,
True. Right?
It's like if you can take the shame away, there's so much common sense in it. It's just very simple and straightforward, but unfortunately, there's just a lot of rules and regulations.
I can agree with what you're saying here, because you're saying like it's very simple. I know to me, I've had that same thought as well. Like, okay, this is simple to me. Like, why don't someone else see it that way, for example? Because it's funny, the example you gave earlier when you talked about the man being hardwired and then the woman being, the sacrificial one or whatever case is. Like, what if it's the complete opposite dynamics? The woman is this and the man is that or whatever. And Yeah, I just honestly, I feel like we just could find some type of balance with it. Like, I do feel like it's something that, married couples should experience. And then obviously, but again, that's the thing. I mean, everything is so topsy-turvy, everything is so flipped around where, again, like I said earlier, like married couples get together and then they don't. They don't come together, and it's sad to me because I'm not acting like I was perfect or anything like that, but for a long time I did like wait, and my looking forward to marriage in this time in my life. And then sometimes I feel as if I'm in the same situation. It's just now that I'm married or whatever. And but see, I've talked about it on GSL a lot, so but I mean, it's just the dynamics of different situations, and also like just kind of, again, I just feel like finding balance with that, and also hopefully, getting rid of the shame and whatever else is causing the disconnect when it comes to this.
Yeah, I think particularly with people who are religious in any kind of religion, one of the key questions to asking clients with sexual issues: does the client come from a conservative religious background? Because if they do, they're quite likely to have a whole load of shame about their sexuality. And that can be Muslim, Jewish, Christian, you name it. But if it's a conservative religious background, it will have rules and regulations, and it will have role models that don't fit hardly anybody at some point, because they're basically made up ways to be and ways to think. And for me, the religious texts are basically written by human beings, but your body was given to you by God. So if you listen to your body, then you're probably more in touch with what's really intended for your life than if you start reading scripts and texts that have been written by a whole load of people, none of which you are sure ever had a happy sex life. I mean, did Moses have a great time sexually? I don't know. Solomon, we think, probably did. But there again, you end up with all these questions like, well, he had loads of women, didn't he? And you're only allowed one woman and one partner or whatever. And you have to go into all of that because your biology isn't that at all. Your biology is not monogamy, essentially. That's why monogamy is quite hard work. Your biology is actually, you're an ape. In that sense, you're a human ape, a thinking ape. And one of the reasons why they say, women are multi-orgasmic and vocal is because, like all the other apes, it's about being able to, attract as many mates as you can when you're on heat. And then you choose which one you're going to be impregnated by.
Well, that's a definitely interesting way to look at it. I don't think I ever looked at it that way. I'm a little so. I don't know what to even say. I guess because I'm wondering, like, when it comes to, I guess, your clients or people that you have these conversations with or help, then do you feel as it's like that? It's that simple between whatever the issues are, or is it more complex?
It's as complex. The point is, people don't come to me for my beliefs. So if somebody comes to me and they're very strict religious, look, we're married, monogamous, we're together until we die, we've made these promises, that's it as far as we're concerned. You have to accept that's the mindset for their life. But you also understand the biology. So there's a man sitting here who's hardwired to be turned on with what he sees. He's stimulated by variety. So he can't help being turned on by any attractive woman that walks by, but he's going to focus his energy on his partner. And then you have to, with understanding of your biology, you then have to work out a life that is satisfying. It gets difficult when every biological aspect of your sexuality gets stamped on by some scripture or by some, rule or regulation, so that in the end you either have to forget it and just accept this is for procreation. So I mean, I was preached to and taught by a man who believed that sex was just for procreation. When you've done procreation, that's it. The rest of life was to be spiritual and to turn this energy into, spiritual development and prepare yourself for something better. But I came to the conclusion that I'd been given this body to enjoy the here and now. And if I didn't enjoy sex now, when I died, I'm pretty sure I wasn't going to get a second chance of enjoying sex later on, because my body would have been, that's it. So the logic is, why doesn't God want us to enjoy sex now? We've got the urge, we've got the body, we've got the possibilities. How come it's got to all be given up, for something else?
And I guess that's, for me, that's one of the misconceptions, I believe. I don't believe that God wanted us that sex was only for procreation. I don't think that's biblical. I also feel like, because I've read the verses regarding, for example, like husbands and wives coming together and not forsaking each other in that aspect, and maybe take some time for prayer, or maybe when the lady's menstruating or something like that, but then coming together, or making sure you guys come back together, or whatever the case is. And so, but I don't know if people are familiar with that. I don't know what they think that means. But to me, that means y'all need to be having sex, and then there might be some times that you don't, but don't let those times last too long. Come back together. And me personally, I see the importance of that. I see the importance of especially, like I said, married couples doing that, because, that's when other things can creep in. That's when temptations and all these other things can creep into a relationship when the two aren't coming together, for example. So that's one of the first episodes we did of God, Sex, and Love. We were talking about the importance of sex and marriage and everything. And so, and it was kind of sharing with one of the couples, and they were kind of sharing their experience and how they came back together and everything like that, in spite of the things that they were going through in their marriage and everything. So but yeah, I think for some reason that's why I'm so confused. Well, on one hand I'm confused, but on the other hand I'm not confused. On the natural, I'm confused because I'm like, why don't more married people have sex? Why do people feel as if they can't, well, not say that they can't, but they just feel like when you get to this part of your life, that's it, or whatever the case is, or they make that some type of negative or mundane thing to be with someone for the rest of your life, or whatever the case is. But then on the spiritual aspect, I'm not surprised, because pretty much everything the Bible says, the world says completely opposite of, and promotes the complete opposite of, in my opinion, So that's why I'm not surprised by, well, if sex is supposed to be for marriage, of course, the opposite is that no, people don't have sex in marriage, and people are struggling with that in their marriages because of that. That's just one example, but that's what I've observed in my little 30-some years. But that's the thing. I guess I'm on team more married sex. I'm over here like, yes, more people. Why don't you guys, do what the word says and let's go.
I mean, the sad thing is, in one sense, that if you can tease out religion from Christianity, you can connect with a God who gave you your body. And the facts are that human beings, if you look at apes, apparently the amount of times they have sex per pregnancy is about 5 to 6. the amount of times human beings have sex per pregnancy is over 1,000. So we don't do it for reproduction. We do it for pleasure, without a shadow of a doubt. Other apes do it for reproduction. I don't know how much fun they get out of it, but we've decided that it's actually much bigger than that. The meaning is much bigger. And if you can connect with your body, and this is where, for me, this is where the Christianity that I was given basically said, your body is your enemy. You've got to subdue it. You've got to keep it under control. If you let it go, it's going to take you to hell in a handcart. You're designed to be spiritual. Spirituality is about sacrifice, subject the body, fasting, praying, these kind of things that are overpowering and subduing the body. And at the end of the day, I've come to the conclusion, having followed those paths and got nowhere in terms of resolving sexuality, because I don't think you can, actually, spirituality is a very natural state, that the nearest thing that you have, naturally speaking, is sexuality. That's why there's such opposition to it with this so-called spiritual line, which is all heavenly minded and doesn't have an earthly connection.
I don't know. I guess one thing I was thinking about is that I believe that we have more control over our minds and things like that than we give ourselves credit for. So I think even by praying or all those things, maybe they are, some form of sacrifice for the spiritual side. But at the same time, it's like, because there's not just because there's consequences, but there are so many consequences of kind of living in a reckless way of thinking or way of living recklessly, basically. Like, if I don't control my own impulses, or if I can't control my own impulses, then, where does that lead me? And is everything that I want to do or think and whatnot good? Good for me to do or think. And so, I guess it's also biblical. It says it's not. But, if we're not thinking about the Bible, for example, and just thinking naturally, is everything that I want to do, think, or whatever, good for me to do and think? Some would say yes, some would say no. But I think for me, when I look at it, I'm like, well, I don't think it is, because what if I want to do something that harms someone else? What if I want to do something that, affects other people? Then it's like, well, it was good for me to do, but it wasn't good for that other person and stuff. So I don't know, maybe all of this goes hand in hand somehow, and there's like some type of balance between it all. But I just feel like we have more, control than we give ourselves credit for again.
I disagree with you. I think I've come to the conclusion that free will is a bit like the cream on the top. There's so little of it that your idea of free will is a bit of a delusion. Nowadays you're beginning to realize how much you're manipulated by Facebook and Google and marketing and all these kind of things. And you say, yeah, but I chose this, and and that's the thing, is that actually you can be directed, and your unconscious is probably far more, in fact, I'm sure of it, far more evident in your life than your conscious, than your free will. There's always this idea, it's a bit like infinity. I just don't believe in it. I believe in the idea of it. So there's always a possibility of numbers that go to endlessness. But then when you get to the last number before you hit infinity, why not just add one? It's like, it's a nice idea. It's like perfection is a great idea, but who's perfect? When are you perfect? And the big question is, well, are you still human when you're perfect? Because I'll never be angry, I'll never be jealous, I'll never be this, I'll never be that. So what are you left being? Well, apparently just happy, laughing, at what? It's I think God likes imperfection. That is what perfection is. It's variety. And we in our minds have these ideas that we set upon ourselves, and they're just ego trips into concepts, and we beat ourselves up over them, and instead of actually living in the moment with all its imperfection. And for me, that's what grace is about. Grace is about, you can either live under law, and you can live under all these rules and regulations, all these ideas, all these achievements of being a good spiritual person or a good married person or whatever, or grace. And if there's something that you think you want to do that might harm somebody else, grace is so dangerous because it says to you, go on, do it. So now, instead of it just being an idea up here, now make it a reality in your body. Now enact it and be present in the enacting of it so that you know what you're doing when you choose to do what you want. But if it says, thou shalt not, you have no idea what you want. You're fenced in by a rule that says, don't steal. And then you think, well, yeah, but I really fancy my neighbor's car or whatever. Now, if you could actually go and do it and take your neighbor's car, you'd know in the doing of it what you really wanted. And in the doing of it, if you suddenly felt, this is really uncomfortable, I thought I wanted my neighbor's car, but now I'm actually going into my neighbor's property and thinking about stealing it, I realize I really don't want my neighbor's car. You don't need the rules anymore, because you've got the rule written in your heart and you've discovered, I don't want to steal. And that's the beauty of grace. Grace says there are no consequences. You're forgiven, even forgiven what you haven't yet done. So why worry about it? Why not think about, what do I really want? Do I really want to go to church on Sunday? Well, God knows exactly what you really want, but you think you've got to do these things and you've got to turn up and you've got to go through this procedure. And the sad thing is, if you really wanted to go, there would be a bigger smile on his face or her face when you arrived on Sunday than if you thought, oh no, this is what we do. This is what I've always done. I've been trained like this. Feels funny not going to church on Sunday. And grace is like, well, don't go to church on Sunday. Don't go to church on Sunday for a whole year until you suddenly realize, you know what? I don't want to go to church on Sunday. I actually want to go to the woods. When I'm sitting in the woods, I actually feel closer to God than when I'm in the church. Or I do want to go to church on Sunday because when I'm sitting with these other people, I really feel close to God. But it's not because I've got a rule over me. It's because I've actually connected with what's written in me, what is my essential being, and now I'm doing it. And sex is the scariest part of all of that. Because we're complicated sexual beings. And usually religious sex is fairly vanilla. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that it is coming across as if it is, and I think that's probably one of my, not say it's not a goal of Sex, God, Sex and Love or anything, but I just think this conversation of sex should not be as taboo as it is. I think it's a natural thing that God, and a gift that God has given us, and I think we're supposed to enjoy it and everything. Like, that. And so now obviously I guess it's up to you and your partner how vanilla or not vanilla it can be. But then I guess that boils down for me, I think it boils down to like communication and you know, expressing what you want your desires to be and everything. That's all I got. I mean, I don't know. You the doctor though, Mr. Stevenson. So.
Well, put it this way. If you believe, I mean, this is what I often, when I've had Christian couples coming to me, I say, you believe that God is a consuming fire. You believe that when he said in the church of the Laodiceans, you know, you're neither hot nor cold, you're lukewarm, and because of that, I vomit you out of my mouth. One thing God can be sure of is if you have sex that is lukewarm, he's not really going to be very pleased. If you are not entering into a consuming passion in your sex, then all the angels and all these people looking on are going to say, well, look, they've got the privilege of this thing. What are they doing with it? And Song of Solomon does actually indicate the fact that when the two partners had passionate sex and were exhausted, God sat on the bed and thought and was well pleased. Because in one sense, that creative act or potentially creative act expressed in physical form the essence of his heart and his spirit. And what do? We creep around with rules and regulations about do's and don'ts, and you're right. There is no permission and there is no liberty, and there's loads of regulations and there's tons of shame. So who's winning the sex war, God or the opposition?
Well, I guess it depends on how you're looking at it, right? But for the description, though, I mean, I think, yeah, we should definitely do more of that. More passion and whatnot. Especially, again, as believers. I guess, obviously, I'm talking to the believers now. But again, I feel like, for whatever reason, when this comes up, or we don't have the conversation at all, like we expressed before. So, yeah, hopefully this is all giving people a different perspective and a way to look at their sex life, especially, again, I'm talking to married couples right now, but yeah, let's look at sex a little bit differently and not just in this way that, like I said, I think people taught it to us in a certain way because, you know, I guess like you say, to maybe scare us straight or scare us to, you know, not sin or not to, you know, do this thing before time, because obviously you can see all the results and the consequences of doing it. So it's like, I understand, you know, probably why our forefathers or maybe our mothers and fathers or whoever it was, that if they did teach us about it at all, if they, you know, then why they probably tried to present it in a way where it's like, hey, don't do this thing until the right time, you know. But then, yeah, I think it's that whole finding that balance between, okay, now when you get to the right time, why are you holding on to, you know, perhaps what we learned before, or treating it as if it's this thing that to not be had or whatever. Like I said, spiritual level, I understand. Natural level, I'm like, I don't understand. Like, this is the time, you know? So, look, Dr. Stevenson, obviously I can sit here and chat with you about this for a long, long time. I don't want to be long time because I know you have things to do. But is there anything you want to share with us right now? Perhaps, I don't know if you have anything coming up or anything you want to kind of just let us know.
Well, I don't have trainings. I do trainings, I suppose, in person, and I do a lot of one-to-one. So I'm very happy to talk to people. I'm likely to be an uncomfortable person to talk to for people who want to maintain their spiritual, their sort of religious situation, if they come to me with a sexual problem, because I mean, I'm not going to challenge it and unsettle it at all. Like you've heard me talk. My idea is not to put my beliefs on them, but it is to try and help them come to terms with who they are, and then try and fit that into what kind of beliefs or lifestyle they want to live. So I'm very happy to talk to people one-to-one, and my experience has been, like I said to you, I mean, I was a missionary for 18 years, working with people who were polygamous, and working with people for whom sex was not the biggest sin. If you sat down with this group of people, they would have said, well, murder is definitely bad, stealing is definitely bad, anger is definitely bad, and at the bottom of the list is sex. And if you sit down with most Americans, Europeans, murder would be at the top, but quite close would be sex. And the idea of being angry is really strange to us. And yet, like the Bible says, when you're angry with your brother, you've effectively killed him in your heart. So that's pretty well near murder. Whereas if you have sex with somebody, what have you done? And a lot of the time, you've broken convention. You've broken social norms. You've broken, the whole idea of cheating and betrayal is about agreements. But practically speaking, you've not done a lot of damage. Not physically speaking, not like murder. So my work is a lot of the time giving people permission to be themselves within whatever belief framework they choose, and try and be as happy as they can within that. And I work with Muslims, with Christians, with people of all sorts of faiths. So I don't have an axe to grind. I get passionate about really connecting with your body, because I'm convinced that when you look at all the scriptures that we're given from all religions, they're all written down by people, copied by people, interpreted by people. The mix is so enormous, but your body has nobody else in between you and it. It didn't come from anybody putting you together in a factory. If it did, then we'd have a similar situation to the scriptures. Oh, well, we've got these bits in this place, so perhaps it doesn't work, I don't know. But actually your body kind of in a way is your way to God, connecting to God. But
hey, I agree. I definitely feel like deep within, even if people don't know scripture or people don't know something, I believe deep within we know right from wrong, we know good from bad, because it's in our hearts, and not necessarily just because it's in the Bible. So, but again, I can say, look, unless you got another 20-30
I've
minutes.
got to go in 5 minutes.
Well, I really, really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you can come back again. And go deeper, talk about something else, enlighten us.
Well, thank you for the time, and been great to talk to you and to meet you as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you again. Thank you so much to Dr. Graham Stevenson for enlightening us today. I hope that you all enjoyed this episode of God, Sex, and Love. Thank you so much for watching. Looking forward to talking to you all next Friday. Good night.